So, I've been meaning to tell you guys this, and I don't want to be mean, and I don't want to be rude, but
What's wrong?
let's be honest here. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is shit.
Whoa! Damn.
Oh yeah.
I
No.
Oh, I
mean,
agree. It's
Yeah.
what Four Kids did to it, just absolutely brutal. Just I can't believe they messed it up, you know. So, I
oh
mean,
yeah.
what are we even here to
I
talk
mean,
about? Are we here to talk about
it wasn't even good to begin with, even before Four Kids. I mean, it
Yeah.
was pretty just
That's fair. That's fair to say.
They did Dio dirty. They just threw him with the trash. Can't
Well,
fix it.
remember, if
Yeah.
you can't pay the cash,
He
you're
couldn't
out
pay
with
the
the
cash.
trash.
Woo!
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the Four Kids motto right there.
And the woo, yeah.
Before we get into it, though, theme song.
It's always hard when the journey begins,
Hard to find your way, hard to make new friends.
but there's nothing you can't do.
Cause you've got the power inside of you. It's not always black and white, but your heart always knows what's right. It's not about win or lose, it's the path you choose. Let the journey begin.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed the last episode of Manga Alert. We were finished talking about the wonderful, the great, and the amazing Berserk with our guest Apollo. But joining us this week, we have the legend and the man himself. He only appears once in a blue moon. We have Harold Lauder joining us today here on the Manga Alert podcast. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Harold.
Big ounce.
Beautiful.
Uh.
Anyways, once again, our beautiful main host, Gear Third Manga Reviews, and also myself, Old Shaman. Don't mind me. I'm just here today. You know, don't even consider me as part of the spotlight. Really, the spotlight should go to Harold himself. Some of the great points that he has to bring up today. We're going to have some really intense discussion about JoJo here today. But in all seriousness, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, really fantastic shonen battle seinen manga
Wow.
series that I've ever read in my life. So...
Also worth mentioning, we're only going to be discussing the first 3 parts today, just because there's so fucking many of them. So what's probably going to happen is that we're later on in the season, we'll do another one, we'll cover some more parts, and then hopefully we'll get to them all at some point.
Indeed. So today, going to be discussing parts 1 through 3, what I like to dub the Dio trilogy.
Yeah.
In other words, talks about the Haman abilities, talks about the vampires, and of course, the introduction to stand abilities. Let's just go right into it, guys. Let's talk about part 1, Phantom Blood.
Well, first, I guess we should talk about how we all got into JoJo.
Okay.
You know?
That's fair.
Yeah. That's a good place
so-
to start.
I'll start. So for me, this was years ago now, but I remember I watched the first couple episodes of Phantom Blood on Crunchyroll, and I thought it was really cool, but for whatever reason I never finished it. But in, I think, 2015, when it finally the manga got an English release, I started picking those up. And I believe that's when I started reading. I started reading JoJo in 2015, and it took me until, I guess, early this year to read all of it. But yeah, I love me some JoJo. Some parts I think are better than others, but overall, one of my favorite series.
All right, Harold, do you want to go ahead and talk about how you got introduced to it?
Oh, okay. So Gear made a review, and then he recommended it to me, so I read it. But this is the thing. I didn't want to read about vampires because they're boring, so I skipped to part 3, and I just read all that, and I read part 3 in 2 days.
But you did eventually read part 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, part 1 I finished last week because I was on the last volume because I had been reading it this year, and then part 2 I finished last Sunday because I read it in 2.5 hours last Sunday because I thought we were gonna record that night, so I just wanted to get it out of the way. So I read it in a blast. I still retained everything, but you know how it goes.
Well, Harold, outside of how you got into JoJo is beautiful, but some of the things that you just said are censored and classified information that we cannot reveal to the public. So you're go in and censor half the things that Harold said, okay?
Yeah. got
But
it.
yeah.
Well, at least-
Anyways, moving on. I
Uh,
guess my introduction was a little more, a little similar to Harold's in how it was recommended. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, originally when it was being printed here in the States, no one really knew that the series consisted of multiple parts. Viz only printed Stardust Crusaders back in, I believe, 2005 is when the printing first originally began. I didn't get into JoJo until
Right.
about 2009 when a YouTuber by the name, and I'll give a shout out to him, NZ Anime Manga, I think he was part of my inspiration as to getting into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He had been
He was around back in 2009.
he was one of the first sort of manga tubers to really be the front runners in like the whole community, outside of course Code
Yeah.
Provider and all those other guys.
Damn, they're old.
But NZ Anime, he I would say is probably one of my main inspirations as to how I got into the series. I started off with Part 3, which dubbed here in the States was just called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Read it, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good part. And then with the announcement of JoJo's popularity, the Phantom Blood anime, and then of course Part 2, which we'll get into a little bit later, was also going to get an anime.
Yeah.
And with the popularity of that, Viz decided to bring over the first 2 parts that North America had never got. So we eventually did get the printing for Part 1 and Part 2, and I read those and really enjoyed them as well. Not to say that they were as good as Part 3, but still equally as enjoyable, just as every JoJo part. And sort of to go off of what Gear had said, really there is no bad JoJo part. There is just better parts that come afterwards. So,
Oh, Shaman,
that's
you reminded
basically how I got into it. Really enjoyed JoJo, and I definitely go on a limb to say it's probably easily in my top 5. So that's how I got into it. So
Nice.
Yeah. You reminded me, a couple years ago in 10th or 11th grade, I was in the school library in this red town, and I saw volume 1 of the original prints of Part 3, so I tried reading it, and I got to the part where his hand came out of the jail cell, and I was like, this is fucking boring. I put it back.
well, takes a little longer for one volume to persuade someone,
And tastes evolve over time.
Yeah.
Indeed.
There's all
But that's how we all got into it. But now that that's out of the way, let's jump right into Part 1, Phantom Blood.
yeah.
All right. So, Part 1 is sort of a rough patch for our mangaka. It's sort of the front and the beginning of any sort of story. The art's a little kind of rough around the edges. He's sort of trying to find his niche with JoJo. Our main protagonist this time around, Jonathan Joestar, the gentleman, the man, the legend, the
That
myth,
boy.
the vampire slayer, and of course our main antagonist, one of the most iconic in shonen history, Dio Brando.
Oh, yeah. Fuck it.
Dio
Okay.
Brandy.
Kono Dio da!
Go ahead and
Come on,
insert that video right there as we say it together in synchronization gear. Go ahead and edit that in.
Oh, but don't put the Japanese version. Put the shitty English version.
No, we don't support that. Anyways,
It was I, Dio.
I am Dio.
But in like a British accent.
Ryan
Probably a
Seacrest.
fake British
Anyways,
accent.
Ew, was Ryan Seacrest?
JoJo Part 1 involves Jonathan Joestar, a true English gentleman, being the heir of what is known as the Joestar family legacy. One day, a boy going by the name of Dio Brando shows up at his house begging to be accepted into the family as a final token of his father's good faith. And
Yeah.
And then he kicks his dog in the
and then
face.
he one punch man Saitama style kicks the dog and dies. So
Well, he kicks the dog and he kills it later. But
yes,
They're-
very true.
they're-
But yeah, so that's pretty much the plot summary to Part 1. There really isn't much to go on. I mean, Dio essentially discovers that there's a stone mask in the house, and through studying, Jonathan ends up discovering that the stone mask has potentially hidden abilities that allows you to become a vampire. We also meet some really great people. We meet William
Speedwagon.
Zappelli and Who else do we meet in this part?
Speedwagon.
Speedwagon.
Speedwagon, who is the ultimate savior to JoJo. I mean, he's in every single part, and he saves basically all the
Oh
Joestars
yeah,
in
he is.
a wonderful fashion. Okay.
He also has a cool
So-
top hat.
Sure.
Yes.
And yeah, he has that.
He only
So-
uses it once.
What people don't understand about part 1 and 2 is that it really doesn't even bring in the stands into the JoJo universe. That happens in part 3. So
Yeah.
in part 1 and part 2, our main focus is of course the Hamon abilities, which is pretty much life energy. If I'm not mistaken, it's pretty much the
Something like
channeling,
that, but it's
the
been a while,
channeling
but-
and breathing of life energy, and then essentially it's being pushed out in form of in a form of
it's
a physical
chakra.
ability, pretty much. So that is essentially the Hamon ability. Not much to go off of, but Jonathan, Zeppeli end up going on this wonderful, bizarre adventure of
Oh, yeah.
vengeance for what Dio had done to his father, which was murder him.
Whoa.
And essentially, that's what
and
happened.
of course,
so.
for kissing Arena, his
Oh, yes.
his bae.
Of course, for stealing his girl.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then, and they meet Tom Petty.
All right.
Yeah, he just died recently.
Thank you, Harold, for that wonderful segment.
Rip
Beverly Hills. Go ahead and edit that in, Gear.
Tom Petty.
Anyways, yeah, so that's part 1 really in a nutshell. It's a pretty short part. There isn't really a
Yeah.
whole lot to go off of.
Yeah, it's only
It's-
like 5 single volumes, I think. You know.
It really
Not too
is
crazy.
just a pure introductory arc to the Joestar family, and I think that's really what Araki was going for in terms of storytelling. I don't know if he knew what he wanted to do exactly with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He was really heavily inspired by the 80s manga at the time, and that was, of course, Fist of the North Star, just really wrestling. I think one of the other things that he was inspired by was, of course, Greek mythology. He was very inspired by that. And, of course, just art and statues. I mean, this man got a ton of inspiration when he first started JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But it wouldn't be until a few parts later where he would sort of find his own art style in his own sort of unique way.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff is heavily inspired by past shonen manga. And for that, part 1 kind of lacks that creative element. I don't know if you guys felt the same way throughout reading part 1, but for me, it lacked its creativity. But the story is what kept me interested in JoJo. While it's not super prominent in this part, it was definitely, it was a good story. It kept me interested,
The ending.
so to say.
Well, back what you were saying about you weren't sure if like Araki knew where he was going to take the series. Like, it's also worth mentioning, like, when you first start a series, like, he probably didn't know if it would even continue past the first part.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And like, there's a few like plot holes and stuff that come up throughout the series, and that's probably one of the reasons why he just wasn't really planning
Hey,
ahead
just forgot
to
it.
make it a huge epic saga or whatever. But yeah, part 1. I like part 1. I really don't like. To me, the story really isn't all that interesting. I do really like the intro though, how we get introduced to Dio, who's such a little shit, but I love it. And it sort of loses me about halfway through the series, but I did really also like how it concluded on the boat with I guess Jonathan sort of sacrificing himself, and which I thought was a really unique way to end that, because that's not something you see very often in the shonen manga.
No.
The main character dying.
Well,
And yeah, overall, like, I thought it was good, it was enjoyable, but like you said, there's not much to it. It's pretty short, and I do think it's the weakest part, but I still think it's worth reading, and it's not something that should be skipped over like Harold did.
well, Shaman
Agreed.
technically read part 3 first too.
Yeah, but I mean,
Oh,
it's kind of
That's
what
all
everyone
we
did
had
back in
for the
day.
longest time.
no, there is the Dwayne gang. I heard those scans are good.
Duong.
Duwang. Yes, Duwang.
Getting a bit ahead of ourselves here.
The Dwang, yes.
But yeah, I mean, Harold, I don't know if you what are your thoughts on part 1 personally?
Well, personally, I thought from what everyone was saying, it was going to be my least favorite part, but I actually think part 2 is my least favorite part.
Oof.
Do you want to support that with some facts and evidence?
Well, it's just it feels like part 2 was very sporadic for me. I just kept going in all these different directions, and that's a good thing. It wasn't bad. If honestly, I just put them together as those two things, because they're kind of equal in quality. It's just I didn't really like the villains of the Pillarmen, and some of the side characters are kind of boring.
All right. Well,
Well, that's
I guess
fair.
we-
I mean, that
guess
could
we-
be our segment into part 2, but I suppose our overall ratings are needed for part 1.
Did
yeah.
we say our favorite characters?
I would honestly say, in terms of part 1 as a whole for an introductory arc, it's not bad. It's not the best. The only thing I can't really put forward is the creativity aspect. The art style is, while good, it's not his own. So for that I have to dock some points for. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I would give it lower, but I'm a JoJo fan, and I see the light in part 1 and the amount of characters that are introduced. Really love Zappelli as a character. I thought he was probably the most original in the part. I liked him. At most points, I actually liked him more than Jonathan. So Jonathan sort of services as like a silent protagonist, so I didn't really care for him too much, but he was okay.
Yeah.
And Dio, he's just evil. I mean, he is really just an evil guy. You hate him so much that you love him. So 6 out of 10 for me. Not a bad part. Not the best though. So.
I'd probably go 7 out of 10 because I do find certain aspects of Phantom Blood really, really enjoyable. But again, there are just some things like, again, Jonathan, he's also probably my least favorite JoJo. Like, there really isn't much to his character, I find. But, I still do like it. And I get, like, if it were any longer, it would probably be lower than a 7. But it's, it's short and sweet, so yeah, I think it's cool. Harold?
I give it a good 6.5.
Okay, middle ground.
I like Dio was my favorite part. Speedwagon was also cool. Poco, he was a little bitch.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, no, that
Anyways.
Poco kid, he kept pissing his pants. That annoyed me. He's a bitch.
Part 2.
Ooh.
Battle tendency.
Battle tendency. So, sort of going off of the basis of part 1, we have a few things that carry over. For one, the Stone Mask take a pretty big turnaround in part 2, and then also the Hamon ability. This time we find ourselves in the late 1930s.
Yeah.
And our main protagonist this time around is none other than Joseph Joestar.
Best JoJo and the grandson of Jonathan.
Often considered the best JoJo. I would say he's probably top 3 or top 4.
Yeah, top 5.
He is definitely, I think, probably one of the most. He's probably the funniest out of the main characters. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. He is just a really likable character right off the bat. The way he's introduced in, I believe he's the very first volume. He's in New York City, and he meets what's his face?
Smokey.
Smokey. Yes, and he basically just one-shots all the 2 cops, and I mean it's pretty hilarious. I mean let's be honest here.
And he drank
one
a
of
Coke.
he did it by drinking a Coke.
Hope
Not
it
a
was
Diet
Diet.
Coke though, but a Coke. So,
They never said.
well, they didn't have Diet Coke back in the 1930s.
Oh, damn. I don't really know.
I mean, maybe they did. None of
might.
us were around then, but not
They
that I
might.
remember
Everyone's all
marketing
upset
wise. But anyways, so part 2, going off of the basis of part 1, the Stone Mask this time around have been discovered by an archaeological group, and what is known as the Pillarmen are awakened by, of course, touching these Stone Mask. Now, the Pillarmen are essentially like the ultimate life forms of the universe. They've lived for thousands of years, and they are pretty much indestructible. No one has ever been recorded to defeat them. And so Joseph Joestar, our youngest protagonist in this part, ends up making contact with the Speedwagon Foundation, which, of course, if you remember, Speedwagon was a pretty crucial part in part 1. He was, influential, best character, basically saved the day in part 1. So this time around, he comes back. This time he's an old man and
A bachelor.
Yeah, he is
Yeah,
Forever
it's
Bachelor.
a doomed bachelor to be ever forever alone.
I don't know. Maybe some stuff happened.
No, they say he never got married. He died at 89 of a heart attack. Yep.
Ironically enough. Anyways, so yeah, part 2, battle tendency. I mean, that's pretty much the basis of the story. Joseph ends up.
Then they go get help with the Nazi from the Nazis. That was
Joseph ends up meeting, I believe, is his great grandson of Zappelli, who is Caesar Zappelli, which is has a pretty emotional segment in this particular part. But everyone thinks that part 2 has the greatest bromance. I think it has the second best bromance because let's be honest here.
Oh yeah.
Caesar's a really good character. I like him, but I don't like him as much as his great grandfather in part 1. Okay.
Kind of similar.
There's something about part 1 and really him and like just the way he looks and talks and presents himself. I don't know. I liked him in that part. But Caesar's good. I like him a lot. But the person who really steals the show here is Joseph Joestar, I think.
I was gonna say Lisa, but
well, that's kind of gross, especially if we know the spoilers.
No, I was saying she's the best
Well,
character.
this is a spoiler
I was
cast.
saying-
Yeah.
So-
So I mean, Lisa is
Best MILF.
Joseph's mother.
Yeah, and Joseph definitely
Yeah.
spanked it to her.
And Joseph definitely had the hots for her. Let's be honest.
He blasted rope a little bit.
Well, I mean, I don't blame him. She's pretty.
Yeah, she's 50,
She's
but
she's pretty fine for a old lass.
pulling a full-on Marissa Tomei right there.
Hmm.
She was out main Spider-Man.
So
Second.
pretty much, Joseph encounters the Pillar Men, and he gets his ass kicked the first go around. But they decide to spare him and give him the challenge, which I forget. They have a name for it, but basically they chain his heart with a ring. Or they all the 3 of the Pillar Men put a ring around his heart, and in order for
2 of
them,
Yeah.
I think it's 3.
No, it's Wham and not the guy with the head thing. It's Wham and I think AC/DC.
Well, anyways, they chain his heart, and he's put with the challenge where the only way he can remove the rings is if he defeats/kills these Pillar Men. And so he has, I believe, a month to train in order to enhance his Haman abilities, along with Caesar, to defeat the Pillar Men and to essentially be able to rid the rings from potentially killing him in the month's time that he has left. So that is pretty much the basis of part 2. I really enjoyed the story a lot. I thought it was really, really good. It definitely showed some problems, I think, in the early half with its introduction.
Yeah.
I just something about the introduction to any JoJo part just doesn't really do too well. But as the story progresses, I think it does a really great job developing over time.
Yeah.
So
Really ratchets up the action.
Yeah, like almost immediately when I started reading part 2, I was like, holy shit, this is so much better than part 1. And it's mostly just because of Joseph. Like, I love Joseph so much. He's definitely my favorite JoJo out of all of them. And I think he just adds so much more to the story it's such a huge contrast between Jonathan, who was barely even a character.
He was a good boy.
But Joseph,
I don't
man.
know.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, he was a gentleman, but he's kind of boring.
boy.
But Joseph was just fantastic, and I do love Caesar too. To top 10 saddest anime deaths right there
That's
when he
sweet.
finally kicked the bucket. Yikes!
He had a
I
cool
think
power.
And
I think
love
Araki likes to make his deaths super poetic because let me tell you, the part 2 deaths are like, my God, it's like
Oh.
something out of Shakespeare.
Yeah,
I
when
mean, even the way the Pillar Men die, they're like, "Go and get them, Joseph. You will forever be remembered." Like,
yeah, that's why for me, Wham and Joseph are the best bromance. Just the way they act.
Oh yeah.
I like.
But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the story. Again, it's pretty short. I think this one is 7 volumes long.
so yeah, this
So-
one around is it's slightly longer, but more or less it's the same length as part 1. So it's
Yeah.
pretty short.
I will say, Yeah, the one thing that I don't really care for in part two is the villains, the Pillarmen.
Yeah.
Like compared to Dio, that I didn't really see them like they didn't seem like as evil as Dio,
Yeah.
as threatening as
Uh-huh.
him, even though they technically were more powerful than Dio.
They were kind of
But it's
goofy.
just yeah, like I didn't really care for them all that much, and I don't remember them very well.
you have a favorite
so
one?
that's like my only problem. Because like JoJo's a series known for its great villains, but this part they're pretty forgettable in my opinion.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
weakest
I mean, I'm gonna have to agree with that. I mean, as much as the fights and the poetic nature of Araki, the Pillarmen were just really forgettable. I mean, their development is very minor. They talk about how they were around like 10,000 years ago, and how they were
Yeah.
the supreme beings. But their ultimate end goal is to get a hold of the what is it called? The Eye of
Red Gem.
Like Wajad.
it's one of the gems that is supposed to grant the true ultimate life form, the greatest power ever. And
Jesus.
I think one of the disappointing things about part 2 and how it like goes from this kind of realistic like okay, like Joseph is training in the Haman ability and getting stronger and stronger. The end of part 2 I think is the most goofy. I don't like the fashion on how it was Wham and how he went out. Basically gets sent up
What?
to space,
Shot up into
and
space.
he isn't even technically dead. He's just frozen in time. So
No, that was Cars. That was the last one.
or
Cars.
Cars, yeah.
Yeah, Cars.
Wham
but
was
yeah,
the brother right there. He
I
was
mean,
my-
it's just to me. I felt it was a little bit goofy as an end, as like kind of like an ending. But
Mm.
I think that's probably my only complaint. Part 2 is really enjoyable. It's not the best part. I think it has one of the better JoJos out of the main 8, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I would definitely say it's better than part 1 though. So I
Oh,
think
for
if
sure,
I were to
yeah.
give an overall rating for part 2, I was rating this part relatively high when I first read it, but I think now I'd be okay with giving it a 7.5 or a 7 out of 10. It's good, but like I said, with JoJo, the essence is that it just keeps getting better and better. So
Yeah.
I'd be comfortable
And-
with leaving it at a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit higher than you again with an 8 out of 10. Like I really enjoy Battle Tendency, and a lot of people like will start reading JoJo Phantom Blood and not really care about it very much, and I'll be like, listen, just read Battle Tendency because that's when it really the quality steps up. So that's what I always tell people to do, and I do really enjoy Battle Tendency. But Harold hates it, right?
No,
Harold?
no, it's in all honesty, if I could, I'd just put it as equal at the bottom. But yeah, I enjoyed part 1 more so. Part 2 wasn't bad. Yeah, I give it a same score, 6.5. 7.5, I have to change them. That was good.
All right then.
That was good.
Alrighty then. So
And then Speedwagon dies of a heart attack.
yeah, we get a moment of clarity towards the end of part 2 in terms of where our characters go from here. And unlike with part 1 and 2, the years sort of just fly by after that point. So
We go all the way to, I believe, the late 80s.
part 3 is mid 80s, where our main protagonist, this is
Ooh.
the boy right here.
This is my one.
Jotaro Kujo.
He's my favorite. Actually,
in
no.
Japan.
Gear hates Jotaro, I forgot.
What?
No, because you always say, oh, Jotaro's not that good.
What? I mean, I like Jotaro. I don't love him.
Oh, see, there it is. Wow. Jotaro's the best.
I think when I was first reading Jotaro, I think appealed to me more as the shonen icon. He was this silent protagonist who was a ultimate badass
Oh, yeah.
who just wanted to
Like he
kick
fucking
ass,
it starts
smoke a
off with him
cigarette,
shooting
and just be a
himself in the
punk.
face. Like,
Can't get any better than that, right?
Yeah.
Should we
He calls
start
his mom a bitch and to
Oh.
fuck off, and
I feel that part 3 really it starts the motion of JoJo MILFs.
Well, what about Lisa
I thought part 2 started
No,
the
no,
motion of that.
it keeps the motion going with
Holly?
Holly. Yeah, There's Lisa, Holly, and then... Oh yeah, part 4 does have one. Part 4 is my favorite.
Well, part 4 next time, but
Well, yeah, we're talking about part 3, Harold. Let's not get too carried away here now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jotaro appeals to the younger audience. You know, I mean, he really is an icon to look up to in terms of being the most respectable. We go from a true gentleman to a comedic kind of arrogant ass to just a douchebag. I think that's the remedy of JoJo.
When we first meet Jotaro, he's in a jail cell.
Yeah, for all the right reasons. Am I right?
Yeah, sure. Now I think that as the parts go on, they're like all criminals and shit. Like they do get worse and worse. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, did we summarize what it's about, part 3 yet? Because we only sucked off Jotaro for...
We're doing a bit, Harold. Shut up. Anyways.
Beat your ass.
The only ass you beat is your mom's ass. So get out of here.
Whoa! I knew someone who like beat up his grandma. That kid was a dude.
All right, dear, censor everything Harold has to say from this point on. Anyways,
No.
Part 3, I like. I think this is probably.
Uh-oh.
You guys are gonna be surprised by what I give it.
Okay.
As I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by Harold.
Oh, sorry.
Part 3, I consider to be one of my favorites. I like this part a lot. I enjoy it. It was my first ever JoJo part that I ever read, so nostalgic points. Unfortunately, it gets nostalgia points. But it's not perfect. I mean, it definitely is not perfect. In fact, I would probably say it's definitely it goes with Araki's early works. He's still trying to find his unique art style. He's starting to adopt his own sort of art at this point.
Yeah.
The level of progression from the beginning of part 3 to the end of part 3, I really love the end artwork of part 3.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really wished the later parts adopted, but unfortunately it didn't happen. This one's a little bit longer. It's a little bit beefier this time around. I believe it's 16 volumes in total.
Yeah.
And this is what concludes what I like to dub the Dio trilogy.
Yeah.
This time around,
even
our
though
boy
Dio never truly goes away.
Indeed.
Even though he's
Our
only-
friend Dio actually survived the events of part 1. And he is fished out of the ocean in the coffin. And essentially, he is revived and revitalized
Using
as his
Jonathan's sexy body.
His new motion to destroy the Joestar bloodline is not only to gain the help of... Well, I'm trying to remember who the shaman's name was, but...
Enya, or Enyaba.
She possesses the stand arrow, which is a arrow that grants the ability of gaining power and an ability. And thus, she decides to pierce Dio with the arrow, and he gains one of the most broken abilities in the JoJo universe, in terms of part 3. The time stop ability, the world.
Zawaldo!
And so, this time around, we're leaving the Hamon, sort of. We're leaving the Hamon, and we're going to what is known as the stand. And in my opinion, this is when JoJo starts to take off. This is when Araki finally finds his unique touch to add on a shonen battle series.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what we get is the stand. And let me tell you, there are some really unique stands in this part.
Yeah.
Not necessarily name-wise, but ability-wise. He has the ability to create some of the most interesting and well-engaged stands. At times, even the stand is more interesting than the character who possesses it. So really, in part 3, we get the introduction of Jotaro Kujo, our 17-year-old main protagonist, who is found in a jail cell where he possesses not only a strange ability, but that particular stand that we were talking about earlier. And so what happens is when Dio is touched with the stand arrow, it awakens the Joestar bloodline stand as well. And so this time around, we get some reoccurring characters. We get the one, the only, the one truly, Joseph Joestar.
Oh yeah,
comes back
again
now as a old man who's just as funny this time around, but
yeah.
he's sort of the wise elder in this group, this really funny group this time around. And he also brings Abdal, who is a great character with the power of the chicken fried stand. That is Magician's Red, of course. And we have one of the best introductory fights in Part 3, and that is Joseph awakening, or not Joseph, but Jotaro awakening his stand ability, Star Platinum, which is, again, one of the most influential, iconic stands in this particular part. And the story sort of just continues from there. We finally get the reasoning as to how Joseph found out about Dio's awakening, the reason why all these strange stand abilities are now coming to the Joestars, and essentially what they have to do. They have to plan a trip to Egypt and destroy the evil that is Dio. So this time we get a pretty crazy adventure. We get a pretty bizarre adventure this time around, meeting two other characters, Kakion and, of course,
the good Frenchman.
And Iggy, who is the most forgettable.
Character. What?
Iggy is most forgettable. Anyways,
I gotta be honest.
Just kidding.
I cried when that happened, man. I legit teared up. I'm not gonna lie.
Kakion!
That's another thing. Iraqi seems to have a fetish for killing animals.
Yeah,
in like very gruesome ways.
Yeah, one of the reoccurring things in almost every single JoJo part is that an animal seems to die. I don't know what it is. It's just he's got in some panel in some character plot there's an animal that is dead. So there's that. But anyways, the faults I think that Part 3 suffers the most is the journey to Egypt itself. There are so many
because basically it adopts this formula where like they'll go to a new place, they'll find a new stand user, and then they'll have to deal with it. And this is like pretty much the plot of the whole series. They keep dealing with other stand users on their way to Egypt until they finally, and then they get to Egypt, they have to deal with Dio.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the formula.
Really felt like just a classic shonen that you would watch on TV, you know, kind of like a weekly kind of thing. Like every week they encounter like a new stand user, they fight that user, and then they find some crazy way to defeat that stand user, and it's sort of a rinse and repeat kind of thing. I think the story really picks up once they end up in Egypt. The stands and the characters that they meet start to get a little bit better, and the development along the way also starts to get better. The one problem I have though with the protagonist this time around is Jotaro Kujo is sort of, once again, he sort of plays the role as the silent protagonist. He doesn't necessarily have anything great to say, but he doesn't really contribute too much to the plot. It's mostly Joseph talking in dialogue with the other characters and telling everybody what needs to be done. And so the trip to Egypt is sort of slow. The development isn't that great. When I was first reading Part 3, I enjoyed it, but now that I look back at it, I didn't really like the very first part of Part 3. But eventually, once we get to Egypt, we start encountering some really crazy stands like Oingo and Boingo and the Darby brothers and Vanilla Ice. I mean, some really crazy stuff going on here. Not to say that the trip to Egypt wasn't great. There are, again, some notable stands. I thought the Death 13 arc was a really good one as well.
Right.
The very first encounter that they make in Egypt is really good. Is that the Emperor fight?
Yeah, Whole Horse in the after.
No. That, I mean, when they get right to Egypt, when they find Iggy. I forget his name.
The Falcon Pet Shop.
No, not him. It's the water stand. It has a pretty generic name, but I'm trying to remember.
Like his name's Kendall.
I don't know. I really can't remember the name. That's sort of sad. But when that fight happens, I think that's when I really start getting into Part 3. I really love that fight. I just, for the love of me, I cannot remember what the name of that stand was.
There's just so many. It's hard to remember all of their names and powers.
Yeah.
But the way they go about that fight is really interesting to me. Not only is it sort of a tactics fight, the guy who is using the stand is blind and uses the sand particles around him to defeat his enemies, and it's a ranged stand, so at the best moments, I mean, really, the Stardust Crusaders, which is uniquely dubbed as this part. I don't even think we even said what Part 3's main title
true.
was. But the Stardust Crusaders end up basically in a really big pinch, and they just can't even defeat him. So Iggy comes up with the idea of using his own stand, which is Pet Shop, or not Pet Shop.
The Fool.
Right.
Sand.
And it gives him the ability to fly. And so in order to trick the stand user, he uses the sand particles to fall on like his wings to fall on the ground, so he can trick the stand user and ultimately get up close and defeat him. I
found
thought
the name.
that was a wonderful fight. I mean, it was brilliant in the way it ended, and also not only that, but it's like, like I'm one of 13 stand users that are basically like super OP and like part of Dio's army. Like, good luck. And like he basically just commits suicide. So it's like, all right, I can see where this is going. So I really like that part. So
I looked up the name of the stand. It's Geb, Geb.
What is it?
Geb. I guess it's an Egyptian god. Geb. I don't know.
I call it the water stand. Anyways,
Yeah.
Part 3.
Blind guy.
Part 3 is really good. I mean, it's a 16 volume arc, but there are so many overreaching stories and plots and different characters being introduced and thrown into the mix at once. It's really hard to just say, oh, well, like, here's a good point here, here's a good point here, because really Part 3 is really enjoyable all the way through, but in my opinion doesn't get really great until you get to Egypt. So that's what I have to say about it. Eventually, they defeat the 13 stand users in Egypt, and they end up coming across the man Dio, where he doesn't reveal his powers right away because he is currently healing his body because he's weak and doesn't have the complete body of the Joestar line, so therefore he cannot actually use the body to the fullest ability. I guess that's the reasoning behind it.
Well,
Something like that.
he does use it a little bit.
He has enough. He has enough
can't.
power. He has enough power to fuck Jorno's mom, though.
Well, and
Whoa, we're going into some Part 5 territory here. We're not going to be talking about that here on the Manga podcast.
Part 6 too. Part 6.
But you know what? They get to a point where we lose two of our favorite Crusaders, Abdal and of course Iggy. Rest in peace.
Oh man.
And
Abdal's death was crazy. He just like disappears. Like he's just like instantly gone.
I was sad because
I mean, this is when I say that Vanilla Ice could easily have defeated Dio, which is sort of why Dio manipulated Vanilla Ice and to join his army,
turned him
of course.
into a vampire.
But he goes out in the dumbest way possible. I mean, I don't know how stupid you could be to not know that vampires, melt in the sunlight, and that's pretty much what happens to him. Cream's ability is, of course, to destroy all matter, and yeah, I mean, that could have easily killed Dio. I mean, you can't really defeat that, so Vanilla Ice gets sort of one-shotted in the dumbest way possible, but, it is what it is. Then we finally get the fight that we all been waiting for, and that is Dio versus Jotaro Kujo. And in essence, this is the staple fight in Part 3.
He finally reveals his power.
He
kills a cat. He throws a fork at the cat or something.
He throws a knife at a cat. It explodes. I don't know what the logic behind that is, but yeah. Anyways,
he kills Kakyoin. Rip.
And rest in peace, Kakyoin. But as a parting gift, Kakyoin discovers the true ability of the world, and that is a time stop ability. And so, Joseph ends up relaying the message to Jotaro. Jotaro finds out, but then, yet a Deus Ex Machina moment. All along, Star Platinum was the world. All along, the same stand was given to Jotaro. Ironically enough. And so Jotaro ends up discovering that he possesses this time stop ability. Of course, he does some crazy tricks, some crazy tactics before he ends up tricking Dio and then getting this time stop ability.
Pretty sure he like kills Joseph at one point.
Yeah, he does. And then so Jotaro gets a moment of clarity, I guess, because he sees his ghosts and he's like, "You must destroy Dio." And Jotaro's like, "Nani?" And then he's like, "Yeah, okay, all right, I guess."
Holy shit!
And so And so
You're Daze.
go ahead and insert this in road roller meme all the way. Best meme.
Rolla da.
Anyways, so pretty much they fight. Really cool fight. Something we all wanted to see. And Dio is destroyed.
They beat
Why?
him. Or is he?
Shit. Or is he?
Did they destroy
Well,
him?
Did they really
Yeah.
destroy him? And so
Find out in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 9.
yes. Anyways,
return.
Please.
wow. So
Favorite
part
character?
3 is a mouthful. Really enjoyed this part in particular. I think this one gets an honorable mention for characters. So I want to go around and just talk about who our favorite characters are in this particular part. Is there a lot of good ones?
Yay. Yeah.
So who wants to start?
I'll
You're
start.
Shaman.
I just love the whole ensemble cast here. Like I love them all so much together. And personally, again, Joseph is still my favorite character. Like, even though I don't think Jotaro is as interesting as Joseph, like you said, he's more of like the silent protagonist type. I just think Joseph being there really adds a lot to it. And I do think Jotaro is pretty cool. He has a lot of funny lines, you know, when he like calls his mom a bitch or whatever, and he just doesn't give a
Whoa.
shit about anything. But yeah, he's cool, and I love Polnareff and Avdol and Iggy, all them. They're all just great. There's a ton of memorable villains. I just think Araki really knocks it out of the park here with a lot of the characters, and I just like part 3 really seemed like we talked about this a bit earlier, but just like this was sort of like Araki finally finding his groove, because a lot of the other parts after this are sort of similar to Stardust Crusaders and how, you know, it's just a bunch of stand fights and stuff. It really feels like he came into his own here, and like the stands were just such a fantastic ability, because I feel like with the Hamon, it was all right. It served its purpose, but I think he really did everything he could with it. So
Yeah.
so I think the stands really help that. I mean, it's kind of weird how like Hamon's never acknowledged again. Well, it sort of is
Well,
with Joseph, but you know, after that.
Haman sort of gets kicked to the curb in this one, and so like
Yeah.
Joseph, because he has such a shitty stand, he has to like
Well.
utilize Haman with his ability. Not to say it's a bad stand, it just really isn't useful in combat, and I think that's the big
Yeah.
problem with it. So
Yeah, it's the same ability that Waluigi has in the soccer game. They can both make purple vines.
What?
Yeah, in the Mario soccer game, Waluigi's special move is making purple vines, and Joseph can make purple vines.
what you'll notice, guys, newcomers to the Manga Alert podcast, Harold kind of you know, he has a mind of his own. He talks about whatever he wants to talk about. So please ignore it. Please ignore it. Beverly Hills, yeah.
Oh, my favorite characters in Part 3 were my top 3 were Jotaro, Abdul, and Polnareff.
Wee.
I like them a lot.
Baguette,
No.
wee wee.
I'm happy that
Fromage.
I'm happy that Polnareff survived. I'm sad Abdul died though. That was fucked up, and I cried when Iggy died. And Katsumi was cool.
But
His power was kind
at
of
least Iggy was poetic with his death, though. Abdul just
yeah.
gets fucking one-shotted, and I don't know. I think Abdul was just a joke.
There was also like a part, for a good chunk of the series, you actually think he's dead because he like just
That's
shot
what
in
I
the face.
mean. He's like gone, and like that's
Yeah.
one of the things I don't like in Part 3 is like Abdul sort of like he gets like fake death like twice, and then Kakion gets fucked up in the very first fight in Egypt and almost loses his eyes, and he's in the hospital for like a good chunk of the stand fights that we get in Part 3 towards the end, of course. And then, you know, I mean, I don't know. It's one of the things I dislike a lot. And Iggy, he doesn't show up to the very end of Part 3, really. And he's only part of the Crusaders for a fair bit of the fights. But, like, he's there for maybe 3 or 4, and he sort of has his own solo
Shaman.
fight, so...
Shaman. He's a good boy, Shaman.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. He is a dog. I mean,
Yeah, and he gets fucking murdered. This is one you actually care about, because Danny and no one cared about.
well, I
Sadly.
cared about Danny.
I cared about
Nah,
Danny.
fuck-
Danny was the best
Danny was-
character. I mean,
Danny was
Nah,
the best
fuck
boy.
Danny. He deserved to get kicked in the snout.
part 1 hater over here.
Animal abuse.
And Harold approves of animal abuse. Please edit that in, Gear. Anyways.
No.
We'll have you know that
No.
we're not responsible for the damage of any animals in this podcast. Go ahead and edit that disclaimer in the beginning of the podcast. That way people know
Good
that
idea.
we do not support animal
So-
cruelty, and we are not responsible for the hurt or death of your animal. So
Oh. So favorite stand. What is your?
I
guys'
didn't even
favorite
talk
stand
about
in
my
this
favorite
part?
character, but I think everyone knows this.
Oh.
I mean, I like Jotaro Kujo, even though he doesn't really. He starts to become a really good character in the later parts, but part 3 in particular, I like him a lot. I think he is the. In terms of shonen, I like him. I don't know. He
I think he's a better generic character than like Goku or someone.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a better father than Goku. If we're being honest.
I don't know about that, but anyways,
I mean-
moving on. Yeah, I like Jotaro Kujo a lot. Second favorite character, I mean, to give it to a villain, I
Yep.
guess if we're talking about favorite main character versus favorite antagonist, I really like Darby. I don't know why. In my opinion, that fight was just unexpected. You know, it's just the traditional stand ability has always been in part 3. Oh, this is a physical stand. We fight each other with our stands, and then we beat you. That was a very different fight in the Jojo universe, and so I like that one a lot. So Darby definitely would probably be my favorite antagonist.
Oh,
Dio, on the
Yeah.
other hand, I think is really weak in this particular part. He's in comparison to how
Yeah.
he is in part 1. In part 3, he's just sort
Yeah.
of thrown in at the last minute, like, oh yes, I survived, and I hate your family, so I must kill you. Like, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, and there like really isn't much to him because like he doesn't really show up much until the end. You like see bits and pieces of him, but he doesn't really come
Yeah.
at full force till the end of the series.
I like. I gotta be honest with Shaman. The Darby fight, I think, is the best fight. Better than Dio's fight.
Dio fight's pretty good, but
What's that one where Polnareff turns into a baby?
Oh yeah,
Best
that one was
one.
weird. When Jotaro gets turned into a kid and he still beats that guy's ass.
rest
Yeah,
in
there was
peace.
a lot of good. There was a lot of good characters in this part, except Anne. No one liked her. Yeah.
Well, what was our next segment? If you can't pay the
Favorite
cash, you're out with
Do
the
our
trash.
scores. Our scores for part 3 first.
Okay, so part 3. You know what? This one gets nostalgia points. I like it a lot. It's not perfect. It really is not the best JoJo part, but it's really good. If honestly, for the first 2 parts, I would almost go on a limb and say, don't even read the first 2, but you should anyways, because really there is no bad JoJo part, and even those 2 first parts are really enjoyable. So part 3 for me gets a 8 out of 10. I like it a lot, and at this point in my reading of JoJo, part 3 is considered to be my favorite. So in this particular part, if I were to rate my favorite JoJo from least to best, it would definitely be part 1, part 2, and then part 3. So that's how I feel about it. But I don't know if you guys feel any different. But 8 out of 10.
I used to when I first read Stardust, I thought I gave it a 9, and now I think it's more closer to an 8, just because as time has gone on, like a
Yeah.
lot of the other parts are much better, and I've noticed a few more flaws with it. But overall, I still really, really enjoy it, and I think, like I said before, this is where Araki really finds his groove, and JoJo just becomes like a fantastic series. And yeah, overall, just really, really love Stardust Crusaders. Harold?
My original score when I first read it was a 10 out of 10. But looking back on it with all its flaws, I'd give it like a 9.5 if I'm feeling generous, because it's still in my top 4 parts.
There you go.
Just gotta be real.
Yep. All right. Well, that's parts 1 through 3 in a nutshell. I
That'll
mean,
do
this is honestly, in fact, if we really were to consider parts 1 through 3, that's like the biggest introductory arc ever for any shonen. I mean, I think part 4 is when shit hits the fan. We get all of the characters from the previous parts joining together. I mean, it's great. Anyways, we'll save that for the next video.
More on that later.
We'll save that for part 2 of Manga Alert for JoJo. We're gonna start the
Yeah,
aftercast here and now.
Yeah,
Welcome everybody
favorite.
to the Aftercast. Hope you all had a great time listening to Manga Alert for this week. Just so you know,
Yeah.
we have a designated schedule dedicated to what we have in the works. We plan to do Manga Alert similar to Season 1. We're going to have the same amount of episodes, and then, of course, we're going to take a long break from Manga Alert and then continue the next season following, probably in the next year. Because these episodes are inconsistent. They come out, whenever we honestly feel like getting the courage to record something. It's really difficult getting a hold of everybody on a schedule and being able to record at the same time. Seeing as we're all human, we all have our own responsibilities, and then we also, of course,
and there have been people who wanted to be on the podcast since the beginning, but the times have just never worked out.
Yeah.
So
Lavix was supposed to be on actually.
he'll get his limelight hopefully for part 2 when we do Jojo. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we're working our best. Gear is our lovely editor, which we should give him a lot of credit here, because he on top of doing a lot of his videos on his own channel, he also takes the time to edit the podcast. So thank you for that, Gear. Really do appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, as time has gone on, I find editing the podcast a lot easier, so it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And for those who are Shrug fans, Shrug will be joining us next week. We're gonna be doing a pretty interesting general talk. So hopefully you guys will find that to be enjoyable. I won't reveal it at the current time, just because I want to keep it a surprise for those who are interested. So but yeah, he'll be back. So for those who have been wondering where he is, unfortunately, it's like with the past couple of topics, he just hasn't found the time to read Berserk or Jojo. So. It's unfortunate, but hopefully one of these days he'll be able to start those series here pretty soon. So,
Harold, when are you gonna read Berserk?
I don't really have an interest in it. I just don't want it.
Oh, no.
You don't have an interest in the
Clang?
Clang? I don't know. Honestly, I gotta be honest. From all the stuff I hear from you guys, and all your retellings of it and your experiences, it doesn't really sound like a masterpiece. I'm just gonna be honest.
Tell me why. Tell me why, Harold.
Tell me why. Tell me why. Tell me.
First of all, Gear, you didn't even put the grasses off, so don't even. I don't know. I think the best thing. Yeah, I think the best thing Berserker honestly did was give us that song. That's all I can say. I can't really give a unbiased opinion because I just am so against it. I don't want to read it, and I haven't read it yet. So take my opinion with a grain of salt on Berserk. I haven't read it. I've seen the videos.
When are both of you guys gonna read Made in Abyss?
Fuck off. Nope.
I don't know.
Soup.
Maybe when I'm bored out of my mind, I'll check it out.
Maybe if I have to take a dump and I need a book to read. I'm not gonna.
Harold, we're having to censor half the shit that you say in this podcast. Can you not be just gross for 1 minute?
But everyone does that.
Well, yeah, but everyone doesn't want to hear it. It's one of those things that you just you don't say.
Yeah, let the censor end it. Let me end it on a.
We're in the aftercast. We're gonna end it when the aftercast is over. Okay, Harold, get it together. Tired of your attitude. Jesus.
I'm sorry.
Anyways, video ideas. What do we got in the works, boys? What do we have for our channels coming out here pretty soon?
Well, not my channel, but Apollo Gray. How about him quitting?
Apollo Gray quits the community, guys. He's quitting the podcast. He's quitting indefinite hiatus. He's quitting in general.
But I just noticed something, like an interesting pattern. We had Taz on, then Taz quits. Then we had Neptune on, and Neptune dies. And now Apollo. So I think Manga Alert may kill people. Like, what if it's
maybe it's the pinnacle of their YouTube career. You have to think of it that way as well.
That is
true. What if their moment of clarity is Manga Alert? They're like, you know what? Nothing else good. Nothing else good can come after this. Like, Manga Alert is.
Yeah, they're like, we can't top it now that we've been on Manga Alert.
So maybe that's what it is to them. And I mean, they're right. Manga Alert is the #1 podcast here on YouTube. It is the #1 manga-related podcast as well on YouTube. So don't forget to subscribe to Gear, to subscribe to Old Shaman. Don't forget to subscribe to Harold Lauder, who has a YouTube channel. For those of you who were
No,
wondering.
In the description.
no, it's just where I shitpost stuff. If you want to follow me, go to my Twitter. Don't follow me though. I'm not gonna ask for followers. Fuck that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow me.
Yeah.
I'm good.
So
I mean, if you want to. I mean, if you guys
Harold
want
does
to.
have a pretty lit
you know,
Twitter.
He tweets
always.
some pretty shitty stuff, but you know it's
Whoa! Macaroni with ketchup is not shitty.
Beverly Hills. Yeah.
You are
Anyways. Yeah, so nothing really on my end. Got a manga haul, out of print manga haul, so not really different. You know, it'll be a manga haul, but mostly all out of print stuff coming up here pretty soon. I am ready though for God of War. Who else is ready for that?
Oh.
Apollo's ready
God.
for it. He was just talking about it, I think.
I've had so little time to play games. Like I got Ni no Kuni 2 last month, and I've
Yeah.
barely even gotten into that. And I want to finish it before God of War, so it's still probably going to be a while before God of War. But I'm so excited to play that game.
When you
Very
guys-
excited.
When are you guys gonna play? When are you guys gonna play Fortnite?
Never.
Oh,
Fortnite, that's my favorite game.
Yeah.
You know, I was just looking
Play it
at
every
it. Someone
day.
tweeted this out the other day, but Fortnite grosses over $1 million a day in profit.
Fortnite's insane. Fortnite's like the biggest game in the world right now.
Well,
like, it's
it was actually number 2 on this list. Guess what the number 1 is?
Minecraft.
like Pokemon Go or some bullshit.
Pokemon
PUBG.
is on the list, but
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think-
number 1.
Ni no Kuni 2.
League of Legends.
Candy
Huh.
Crush.
Oh,
Yes,
fuck off.
I'm dead.
That's
Yeah.
from the
I am
Emoji
dead ass
Movie.
serious. Candy Crush is still the number 1 grossing game in the
all
world.
those old ladies. All those old ladies.
Ew.
So it grosses in
That's
over
gross.
$1 million. I believe it's 2 million. Don't quote me on this. The number is $2,314,000 that it grosses every day. So pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Pokemon Go is actually number 3, and it grosses over $992,000 every day, which surprises the hell out of me.
Because like you think that game is dead,
Yes.
but I guess not.
It's very popular outside of the United States, so I mean, you know, that could be it. You know, a lot of people outside in the other countries are playing it, just nobody here is playing it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Well, that's like
so-
with PUBG. Like everyone here switched to Fortnite, but over in China they got like all the PUBG going on.
yeah,
I don't know.
I
Minecraft Hunger Games is always the better one.
yeah. And
about
before
DayZ?
Minecraft, it was Halo Reach, Forge World, Battle Royale. So get your facts straight.
Before that, it was Simpsons Hit and Run.
Before then, it
Before that,
was Mario Odyssey.
Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Oh yeah, Brawl is such a good game. So much better than Melee, honestly.
Uh-oh.
This
Oh.
one.
Video.
Well,
Damn.
Yep. So honestly, you know, that couple of video ideas are in the works, of course, on my end. You know what? And this is just a little rant. The hauls always do better. I try to make a review.
the halls do
I
always
try
do
to make it
better.
funny. Try to make it comedic. Add a little script here and there, and they get like half of my viewers' views. And
I find that reviews do better like over a long period of time because a lot of people find them through search results. Like I go back to reviews I made like a year or two ago, and they have like 2,000 more views than I remember. I'm like, what? Where are all these people coming? But I guess it's just people looking through them over time. The hauls are just more like immediate, get like all the viewers quick, and then they sort of just
they
stop
dwindle
there.
at a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of hauls, I do have one coming pretty soon. I got some nice stuff. I guess people who watched my recent video saw some of the new stuff in the background. I got most of Monster. I'll have the rest coming that in. Really excited to read
Golden
that.
Kamuy numbers
Gotta-
3, 1,
yeah.
2.
Yeah. Yeah, 1, 3, and 2. That was awful. And maybe a few more things. We'll see. We'll see.
Rest of Phoenix coming soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, you have the funds. You work at where do you work? You work at Canadian flea market.
Yeah.
Make all the mad cash. Hey, don't worry. I can buy you a volume if you make a video for me and say that Old Shaman wins the war and I give up on life.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I'd say that's some pretty good negotiation if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
Marvel's
Harold, you got any videos
Marvel's
planned?
Infinity War.
All right, that's
It's the
a
greatest
soon.
crossover in history, but I think Part 4 is the greatest crossover. But
I mean,
What? What
I
I
think
missed?
PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale is the greatest
I
crossover.
mean, you're
Oh,
not
I was good at that
wrong.
game.
I mean, you can have Sackboy fight a Big Daddy. That's pretty impressive.
Or you can have Kratos versus Parappa the Rapper.
Rapper was broken in that game.
That whole game was broken.
Nah, come on, Gear. That it had a good intro.
Let's be
It
honest.
had a good intro song.
Was it Inochino Lagasi Sugase?
I mean,
Beverly Hills!
Yay.
Go ahead and end it on that, Gear. Beverly Hills. That'll be our end song.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, thank you all once again for joining us for Manga Alerts. Hope you all enjoyed the first part of Jojo. Come back next week. We're going to have a general talk with Shrug reprising his role after a long, indefinite hiatus.
Yeah.
No shots fired.
well, it's not indefinite
Anyways,
anymore.
Yeah.
It's permanent. It's perma hiatus.
Like this.
Anyways, thank you all for watching, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you, Harold, for coming out this
Yeah.
week and supporting JoJo. We thank you for joining us. Hopefully we can get you on again. Maybe not. Maybe we will. Who knows? But thank you all for watching. Hope to see you all for the next one. Take it easy, and peace out.
See ya, bitches.
Hey, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up.
A new adventure, another day.